Raise awareness about influenza and also to create awareness about the way how we can protect ourselves against influenza. So to start with, I will give you a little bit of idea about why we are in this inform mothers and make them aware about in all about the disease and how they could protect their children from acquiring the disease. And we were able to touch base with over 10 million people through our efforts, which through various media, through digital media, through print medium, through our programs on ground. So through various means, we were able to create this awareness amongst mothers, mom groups in general. And this was widely appreciated by a lot of doctor associations like the Indian Association of Pediatrics and the Federation of Across, and to a larger community, and raise awareness in them as well. So as part of this exercise, obviously, like Smriti mentioned, we have Dr. Palash here and also Dr. Priya, who will touch upon these with their perspective. So before we move ahead, I would like to quote a couple of statistics associated with the disease. So influenza, as we all know, is a viral disease. It's a respiratory illness, and it is typically characterized by high fever for a few days with severe body ache, headache. The problems with influenza arise mainly from the various complications that it can cause. And there are certain individuals who are especially vulnerable and susceptible to these complications, most importantly being children, young children, the elderly, people with certain comorbid conditions, like a range of around 20 to 60% of children suffering from influenza can develop acute otitis media. Plus there are also other complications like bronchitis, pneumonia, which can, worsening of bronchitis, pneumonia, which can occur in people with already pre-existing respiratory illnesses. Now these are some government statistics. So the National Center of Disease...
Seriousness of the disease is very much underestimated, and also the use of vaccines are underestimated. Can I first summarize? If I summarize the situation, then a preventable disease is not being prevented. And my life is influenza. I'm in this field for 30 years. I've developed influenza vaccines, cell culture influenza vaccines. I've done scientific research on influenza. But then it's very different, and we work, and they can only do that with the WHO. And then the problem is that if those vaccines are made and all these drugs, we see that the vaccines are not used as they are recommended. And I would like to elaborate a little bit on that situation, what I call the influenza paradox. Because we know that influenza is an extremely important disease. As just mentioned, and as you will hear from the next speaker as well, influenza causes a lot of disease. It's not just a few days off and take some symptomatic relief. It's really, if you're fit and healthy, that may be the case. But if you have a chronic disease, young children, elderly, all these people have really an increased risk for complications. And it's continuously going on to identify which viruses are causing. Influenza vaccines are composed of different virus types. We have a number of prototype vaccines, H3 and 2, B, there are even 2B strains, and H1N1. The H1N1 is what you call here the swine virus, because it changes, and then we have the global surveillance system by the WHO. So sometimes the burden of influenza is caused by one virus type, and in other years or in other places it is another virus type. So all these viruses circulate at the same time. But in a particular location, usually you have one strain, one virus type, which predominates the burden of disease. But that is not necessarily the same virus in other places. So we have different viruses composed in the vaccines. Influenza vaccines are composed of different virus types. We have a number of prototype vaccines, H3 and 2, B, there are even 2B strains, and H1N1. The H1N1 is what you call here the swine virus, because it changes, and then we have the global surveillance system by the WHO. So sometimes the burden of influenza is caused by one virus type, and in other years or in other places it is another virus type. So all these viruses circulate at the same time, but in a particular location, usually you have one strain, one virus type, which predominates the burden of disease. But that is not necessarily the same virus in other places. So we have different viruses composed in the vaccines. And we know what we need to put in those vaccines because of the global surveillance system of the World Health Organization. The best possible match. So that's why new vaccines, updated vaccines are produced, which not only contain the 2A's and 1B, but also contain the 2A's and 2B's. And of course, that is the advantage when the disease is caused by one B or the other B, and because the vaccine contains both B strains. So that is the rationale and the improvement. And this is a very good example where you have a product, and that's not the end stage, because the world changes, we get a new strain, and then the global community, WHO, industry, are working to update and to improve these vaccines. So what we see is small improvements, but it doesn't mean that you cannot use the other products and older vaccines.
The main thing is treating a disease is not just giving medicine. It is creating awareness among the people on what caused it, how do we prevent it, and how do we reach the general public so that the disease burden comes down. Or a particular area, even in this morning the newspaper said there was an outbreak of diphtheria, for which we already have vaccination going on for many years. But how did this happen? Because there was a group of people who were non-vaccinated. So that the population, they develop immunity faster rather than being exposed to the infection. So nowadays with nuclear families, they want their children to get the best of everything, best of health, best of education. So they start putting their children very early in school. So 1 year, 2-year-old children are all going to school. So they are all exposed to a lot of infection. That is where the maximum burden is. So I see many children coming, starting from now actually. June, July is when it starts in Tamil Nadu. So they come with recurrent respiratory infections. A lot of these infections, when they are more serious, are due to the influenza virus. So this can be actually prevented by what we are talking now, by a simple method called vaccination. Where everybody was worried what to do, absence or presence of medication, all this was a problem. So this can be managed by vaccinating just before the monsoon season starts. In Tamil Nadu, the monsoon season starts around September, October. So it is ideal to vaccinate now or within the next 1 or 2 months, so that these children are protected, because it will take, once you vaccinate, it takes about 28 days for the vaccine to take effect. And what happens is, if it's not like having a small cold. Influenza is a little more severe problem. We all getting admitted with severe types of lower respiratory infections, which are causing, one is the child loses school time, the parent loses going to work. So there is a big economic burden as well. So as a efficient member in a society and a family, and in the interest of the general public, it is very important to create proper awareness on what is this disease, why it is necessary, and disseminate information. So usually most of my patients, as a practicing pediatrician, I vaccinate every year during just before the influenza season starts. So I would like to say, when last year when there was a huge outbreak in March, there was a big H1N1 outbreak. Actually, none of my patients tested positive because they were all immunized. So this shows the efficacy of creating awareness, educating parents, and protecting children from a disease which is, as he said, highly preventable. So now that we have various media by which we can disseminate knowledge, as responsible members of society, it is our duty to disseminate all this so that it reaches many people and it helps society as a whole. நிறைய ஒரு 20 மில்லியன் பீப்புள் டெத்ஸ் வந்து இந்தியாவிலேயே நடந்தது. ஸோ வார்ஸ் அதெல்லாம் விட இது ஜாஸ்தியாக நடந்தது. ஸோ இது அப்பப்போ ஒரு ஃபியூ இயர்ஸ்க்கு ஒரு தடவை வந்துடும். இப்போ வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஒரு பெரிய அளவில் வந்துட்டுருக்கு எவ்ரி இயர். ஸோ அதை வந்து நம்ம ப்ரிவெண்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு நமக்கு வந்து ஏர்லி டிடெக்ஷன், வேக்சினேஷன் இதெல்லாம் வந்து தான் முறைகள்.
இது எப்படி வருது மேடம்?
இது வந்து இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸாங்கிற வைரஸ்னால, ஒரு கிருமினால வருது. இது வந்து டைப் ஏ, டைப் பிங்கிற வைரஸஸ், டைப் சியும் இருக்குது. பட் டைப் ஏ, டைப் பி வந்து ரொம்ப இன்ஃபெக்ஷியஸாக இருக்கிற வைரஸஸ். இது வந்து இதில் ஒரு வருஷம் மாறி மாறி வரும். அது மேலே இருக்கிறது சில அது மோட் ஆஃப் இன்ஃபெக்ஷன் வந்து த்ரூ ரெஸ்பிரேட்டரி ட்ராப்லெட்ஸ்னு சொல்கிறோம். காற்றுல வந்து சீசனலாக போடணும். இந்த மான்சூன் சீசன் வரதுக்கு முன்னாடி போடுறது நல்லது.
இது எல்லாருக்குமே வருங்களா? அந்த
ஸ்வைன் ஃப்ளூ எல்லாத்துக்கும் சரி இருக்குமா?
ஸ்வைன் ஃப்ளூங்கிறது ஒரு வகையான ஸ்ட்ரெயின் அதில் இருக்கிறது. ஸ்வைன் ஃப்ளூங்கிறது ஒரு டைப் ஆஃப் வைரஸ். ஸோ அதுவும் யூஸ்வலி இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணுறோம். இப்போ 2009 அந்த பெரிய எபிடமிக் வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் நம்ம வந்து ஒரு வருஷமும் அதை இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணுறோம்.
ஸோ இது வரதுக்கு முன்னாடி
ஹெல்த் கேரில் இருக்கு.
உங்கள் பேர் சொல்லுங்கள்.
என் பேர் டாக்டர் பிரியா சந்திரசேகர். நான் பீடியாட்ரிஷியன்.